Just before we get into this video, guys, if you want to follow me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram, the links are here. And if you also want to support me on Patreon as well and help out my channel, that would be absolutely awesome as well. But let's get on with the video. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Why You Should Watch, the series where I talk about a TV show or a movie and why you should watch it. It's fairly straightforward. So this time we're talking about a TV show that a lot of people have asked me to talk about now, and I'm finally getting around to it, and that is Red Dwarf. So for those who don't know, Red Dwarf is a science fiction / comedy series from the late 80s, and I think it's still going. I don't know when the last series was, but I'm pretty sure they're making another one at some point. It basically follows the story of a small crew off of the ship Red Dwarf. There was an accident, and that means that there are only a limited amount of people left. So you have Dave Lister, who managed to survive the accident because he was in stasis at the time. You have Rimmer, who is a hologram of somebody who died, and you find out later actually caused the accident in the first place. You have the cat, who evolved from Lister's cat in the first episode, and then later on down the line you have a mechanoid known as Crichton, who just lives to serve the human race and will never ever swear or insult them or harm them in any way. You also have the ship's computer, Holly, which changes from time to time. Sometimes it's a bloke, sometimes it's a woman. Kind of weird because there's not really a proper explanation in show, it just sort of happens. But there you are. Now, why should you watch Red Dwarf? Well, first and foremost, it's really funny. It is a very good sitcom. It features different dynamics. I mean, you've seen it a million times, you know, the dysfunctional family type thing. You've got one character who's like this, another character who is the polar opposite, and they're gonna clash. That is very much Lister and Rimmer. Rimmer is very up his own arse, essentially. He likes things in order. He's very military-esque in his approach to a lot of stuff. He's very anal and precise about absolutely everything. Whereas Lister, on the other hand, is somebody who is just a total and utter slob and will just do whatever the fuck he wants, doesn't care about his health, doesn't care about anybody else, really. He's just sort of like, I'm enjoying myself, so fuck it. Then you have the cat, who is a character who is incredibly vain and just absolutely adores himself. And then you have Crichton, who is just sort of like the bumbling butler type character. And then Holly is very much the straight character, the one who is just deadpan, often playing pranks and teasing the crew of Red Dwarf. So like I say, this is a comedy show first and foremost, and it shows. It is genuinely funny. The scenarios that happen to them, you can't really see them happening in another show, and I think that's the sci-fi aspect coming into it as well. As somebody who is both a fan of comedy and science fiction, Red Dwarf is the perfect blend. It has its laugh out loud hysterical moments, but some of the scenarios that they end up getting into and then eventually taking the piss out of are genuinely really great sci-fi concepts. Now, some of them aren't 100% original, some of them have been in other things before, but there's other things at the same time where you just think, that's a genuinely clever idea, I really like that. But they take the tropes of sci-fi movies and sci-fi TV shows and they turn it into comedy. It never really veers from one to the other, it's very much both at the same time. It has a balance, and that's what really makes this show as good as it does. I mean, the characters as well genuinely do carry this show. They are all hysterical, they all have standout episodes, they all have standout moments. Their dynamics with each other, whether that's Rimmer and Lister, or Lister and Crichton, or Cat and Crichton, or, you know, any matchup you want to take, it works. Every single one of them do. And I personally feel like it's one of those shows that, even though it has been going sort of sporadically on and off since the late 80s, I don't think it's lost too much of its humour or lost too much of its direction. It doesn't feel like it's drawn out. Some people probably will disagree with me on that, but having seen some of the latest episodes, I really liked it still. Might not be as good as some of the classic ones, of course, but that genius there and the charm about it is still there, and it still makes me laugh. In fact, personally, one of my favourite series of Red Dwarf is the Back to Earth miniseries, back from like 2009, which is like 10 years ago now, so it sounds quite old, but it's still relatively new. Is it though? Fuck, I'm old. 10 years ago. Where did that go then? I think especially as somebody who is from in and around Greater Manchester, there's a couple of scenes in Back to Earth that really make me laugh. And if you've seen Back to Earth, you'll probably know the scene that I mean, but there was somewhere I was just like, fuck's sake, but you can't help but laugh. And I don't think anybody who isn't in and around the Greater Manchester area, they probably wouldn't appreciate it as much, but I did. Yeah, well done Red Dwarf for that one. Another thing about Red Dwarf is that it's not afraid to tackle certain issues, and I don't necessarily mean political or anything like that, but it does deal with technology and how potentially far certain technologies could go, or it explores the humorous side of them. I mean, this is a more modern episode, but there's an episode about kind of like when you buy stuff online and it recommends you to buy something else. There's basically this company that once you get something from them, you'll only be able to see their products. And it's very much warning people essentially about how far this could potentially go. I don't think that was the intent. I don't think they were intending to warn people off of buying stuff on Amazon or eBay or wherever. There's also episodes back from the 90s that are talking about like VR. The way that Red Dwarf is portraying it is kind of similar to where we're at now, or at least we're not far off. And again, it kind of warns you of the dangers of it and how far it can potentially go. I mean, are people likely to have a better life in VR and want to stay there? It's little things like that. Like I say, it's not over the top, it's not pushy, it's not preachy, it's not anything like that, but I do like the little nods to real world things. Some of them, they probably didn't even know it was going to be a real world thing, such as VR, but it's still there and it's still relevant. And that's what I approve of in a show like Red Dwarf, that it is timeless, even though some of the special effects might be dated, but then again, they're still pretty good for the time, and they still hold up today. I think a lot of the stuff, particularly when it comes to the spaceships and whatnot, is model work. Now, for Doctor Who fans, the opening shot from Trial of a Time Lord that I always laud and say it's absolutely incredible and probably the best part of Trial of a Time Lord, most of Red Dwarf looks like that. And because the models do look so good, well, sometimes the green screen behind them doesn't look as good, but still the model work and the way that they shoot them for the most part is pretty good. Red Dwarf is a plethora of so many different things. It's sci-fi, it's comedy, it's heartwarming, it's sad in places, not for long because they do some bullshit and then they undo it. It's about family, it's about friendship, it's about clashing with people, it's about people's differences. It's got some genuinely great concepts in there, some of which has been used in previous things like I mentioned, but it puts its own Red Dwarf spin on it, and there is a massive charm about Red Dwarf, and that is why I think that you should watch Red Dwarf. But let me know in the comments, guys, what do you think? Have you seen Red Dwarf? If you have, do you agree people should watch it? Do you like it? If you haven't seen it, then I hope you go and check it out, because I reckon a lot of people who've probably heard of it and thought, maybe, yeah, you should go and check it out because it is genuinely great. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you leave a like on it, subscribe for more. Social media and Patreon links will be in the description below, as always, so if you would follow me on any of those things, I would absolutely love you forever. But until next time, you smegheads, take care of yourselves, goodbye. Which obviously we are more or less where it is in Red Dwarf, if that makes sense. So where we are with it now is kind of where Red Dwarf was, is kind of where Red Dwarf... Why can't I say that? Why can't I say this sentence?